Hello, and welcome to Addicted Like Us, a podcast discussing all things written by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I'm your host, Haley, and today I have Sarah, aka Dragonfly Reads, with me to talk about Fuel the Fire, Book 8 in the Addicted series. A quick recap, I'm Haley, a longtime reader and lover of Krista and Becca's work. I'm also a part-time illustrator, and I had the privilege of working on the special edition covers for the Leica series. Now I just love to spend my time talking about all my favorite books, aka anything written by Krista and Becca. So the Addicted Like Us podcast was created so I could sit down with friends and discuss all of our thoughts. So let me introduce you to Sarah.
Hi, how are you? I'm so excited to be here. When you mentioned that you were starting this podcast, I'm like, I have to be on it. Just a little bit about me. I'm a mom and a wife. I started reading Krista and Becca early on in my romance journey, which still seems like not that long ago, but it was 2015 when I met them at a signing in Savannah. I hadn't read anything by them yet. And I was like, so where should I start? And they're like, well, do you like long series or do you like short series? I was like, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So I left with a signed copy of Addicted to You. And of course, I didn't read it because it was a paperback. So I downloaded the whole series. And at that time, Some Kind of Perfect wasn't even out yet. So I read the first 9 books a month later. And I was completely just enamored with the entire world. And then after that, I read Circus's Family, or I guess it was only The Veiled Audition was out at that time. So
Yeah,
I've been with them for 9 years now.
we love that. We love the long-time readers. That's why,
Yeah,
I mean, we
I
gotta
feel like
have you
I'm
on the
the
podcast.
middle-aged mom of the group.
No.
We all have, we all have similar interests, so it's fine.
I think it's just a testament to the characters that like readers of all ages are connecting with them, and that's just a sign of really good writing.
Absolutely. And I mean, starting with Addicted to You, they're in college. Everyone is just growing as the characters are growing,
Yeah.
and it takes you through that journey. So, I mean, when I read Addicted to You, I was 31.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I was definitely younger. My kids were a lot younger, and, I just grow with them. So I feel like now I am basically Lily and Lo's age, if
Yeah.
we're talking like a series.
Yes. Well, I thought it was funny when I started the Leica series. I think I was Maximoff and Jane's age when the series
Mhm.
started. And then by the time the series has ended, I am now the age of the older bodyguards. And I'm like, this is a weird transition of like, I was relating more to certain characters and now I relate to the other ones.
Yeah, yeah. It was always really funny too, listening to the Like Us series and how the narrators would voice Lo, especially, and Reich, and like these old man voices. I'm like, no, they're not that old.
I hate how old Lo sounds in
I
Damage Like
know
Us.
he sounds like a crotchety old man.
And Rose sounds like a crotchety old woman in that book
I
too. It's
know.
awful.
Poor Rose.
I know.
She would not be happy being represented that way, but we still love
Not at
her.
all. Yeah, we do. I still love that narrator too. The narrator for Maximoff is definitely one of my favorites for the Addicted series. I think he does a pretty
Absolutely. He is so good. So good. He makes Maximoff's like intentions shine through very well.
yes. And on the flip side, the narrators for Rose and Connor, not my favorites.
Not your favorites? I could see that. After I just listened to Fuel the Fire, they were fine. I think they could have been better. I wouldn't say that they should ever be recast, but they were fine. They weren't
Yeah,
spectacular, but I feel like they could, like, especially with like the hop temper triad and things like that,
yeah,
like they could really pack a punch more than they did,
yes.
but
I think for
it's fine.
me, it Therese Plummer, who is Rose, she does a pretty good
Mhm.
job. There are just certain parts which, like, I can mention once we actually get into them, into those specific scenes. But there are certain scenes where Rose is supposed to be, like, really angry and emotional. But when Therese
Yes.
does it, she sounds like she's just really sad and crying, and I don't feel like
You're right.
Rose is. And then Mark Boyette, I can't picture him as Connor. I'm sorry. He whispers like this and gets really breathy during the sex scenes, and I have to turn it off. It's just
Yeah, well,
a
I
shiver.
listened at 2.0, so they definitely go a lot faster for me. But I feel like for Rose, when she gets mad and fired up, like she's almost vibrating, and you want to feel that, and you don't necessarily
Yeah,
feel that.
yeah, yeah. So that's my hot take, personal preference. Yeah, yeah. I
For
pushed
sure.
through it because I love the book so much. Um,
Hmm.
a warning, quick warning before we dive into this whole podcast. If you have not read Feel the Fire, please come back after you have, because we will be spoiling all of it, and you have been warned. And a quick recap of everything that's happened up to this point in the series, as fast as I can do it. The last time we saw Rose and Connor, they were in Kiss the Sky. They had done a reality show called Princesses of Philly with all 6 of the main characters, who hopefully we all know at this point. I don't need to name them all. But at the end of that reality show, they realized that the slimy executive producer, Scott Van Wright, had secretly filmed Rose and Connor in their bedroom having sex many, many times. So he has lots
Many,
of,
many times.
yes, lots of sex tapes of Rose and Connor. And at the end of Kiss the Sky, he sold one of them for millions of dollars to a porn site and has continued to sell these tapes over, God, I don't know how many years it's been since Kiss the Sky. I want to say it's been like 2 or 3 years since
I
Kiss
was
the
going
Sky
to say, I
ended.
think 3 years.
Yeah, up to Fuel the Fire. And what else is relevant for this? So Lillian Lowe got married in the last book. Lowe took over the CEO position of Haleco, so he is now in charge of Haleco, and Jonathan is not. Just something to remember. So I think, duh. And Lily and Rose were pregnant in the last book. They both had their first babies. Rose and Connor have now have their daughter Jane, and Lily and Lo have their son Maximoff. Those are 2 very important characters that I can't believe I forgot. But yes,
I
they're
love
here
them
now,
so
so we'll see
much.
more of them in this. Okay, so
I was
the Fuel
wondering
of
which
Fire
book you were going to
synopsis.
have with you, which copy of Feel the Fire you would have. I have the
I
original with me
have this
today.
one only because I get like really I fold them all over the place, and I was like, I can't
But yeah,
destroy my beautiful indie copies while I'm talking. I can definitely replace this one if I have to.
yeah.
Okay, so Fuel the Fire synopsis. Protect your family at all costs. It'd take the impossible to hurt Connor Cobalt, even for a moment. Protect your family at all costs. At 26, his narcissistic tendencies have made room for the people he loves. Protect your family at all costs. And he loves Rose. But when his love is threatened, when his greatest dreams with her are compromised, what is the cost then? Protect your family at all costs. Love will guide his choices for the first time in his life. So let's start talking about Fuel the Fire.
Oh my God.
Okay.
It's wild. It's
It's just,
wild. Like, okay, it's been a while. First, I just want to say it's been a while since I read the series. And I didn't reread the whole series. I just went right into Feel the Fire. And like all of these memories just came back, and all of this stuff that happened. I'm like, oh my God. So much happens in this book. So much happens in this book.
oh,
And I love
it's such,
I love that the prologue starts in high school at the Model
me
UN. I
too.
love that it starts there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a moment that all Rose and Connor fans were probably salivating for before they ever got it. But yes, this is the first time they ever meet. We meet them in high school at a Model UN conference, and Connor he's getting checked in. He's super snarky, the way he always is. He gets his name tag, and the woman's like, "Good luck," and he hates that phrase. He's like, "No, I control my own fate. Luck has
Yep.
nothing to do with this." And then as he's leaving, because he's under Richard Connor Cobalt, So she was checking in the R's for his name tag, and I love that you see him, I think it's Roland and Rose or something like that, are out of order. And you're like, what's that name?
Right. And she's like, he says to her, you should remember my name.
Oh, yes.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be.
And she's just like, there are a lot of kids here. I don't know if I'll remember all of you. And he's like, no, you'll remember me. I'll be the one that wins every year.
I'm the only one you'll see winning every year. He's oh, he's such a big head, and I love it.
I'm a prick, an asshole, a conceited, arrogant son of a bitch. Yeah. Yeah, you are, Connor.
Yeah. Yeah, at 17.
Yeah. Well, no, I think he's 15 at this, because Rose is 14.
Oh my God. Okay.
He's only 15 at this point. So he's headed to the elevators up to his room, and he gets in and he sees these two girls walking towards him. Like, part of him is like, maybe I should press the closed door button and they'll just catch another elevator. But there's this one girl, one of those girls just sort of catches his attention, and he holds the elevator for them. And she's got glossy brown hair with these hellfire eyes that struck me as malevolent, pinpointed, and blazing, no matter which way she turned. Her mouth moved at a rapid pace, gesticulating angrily as she talked. I wonder who this is.
Who else has yellow-green eyes?
Yeah. So they get on the elevator, and Connor's like eavesdropping on them that there was a problem with a hotel. They've double booked one of the rooms, and it's like a room that the girls are in, and they're insisting that the girls will just get the smaller room that the hotel can accommodate them in, because girls are smaller and take up less space. And that's just so sexist. No.
Right.
That's not how this... And this taller girl with hellfire eyes, she is incensed about this. And I think at one point too, she mentions that it's the Fost boys are the ones that are also double booked in that room.
Right.
And Connor's like, oh, I'm a Fost boy. And if you want to stay quiet, that's fine, but I can't let the Fost boys win. Half of them believe they piss gold, and the other half walk around like they created the earth and sky. Their heads are so inflated that I will cheer when someone decapitates them at the neck. This is just... And Connor's thinking that I've never heard a girl talk like this in my life. She's
like tractor beams right on her.
Yeah. And like, to be fair, yeah, there is no other girl that talks like this. We don't know who it is yet, but we know she's so unique. So then he introduces himself to the other girl. Her name is Lydia. He's like, hi, I don't think I've introduced myself. And they realize that he's a Fost boy. And then he turns to Rose and he says, you're my greatest competition, which is what we learned in Addicted After All, when she was giving birth to Jane. Connor quizzed her on what his first words to her ever were. You're my greatest competition.
That is like, I want that tattooed on me. That is just something that is, I have tears in my eyes thinking about that right now. Like, that is like a phrase for the ages.
It is. And just like, so them.
And he never knew her before. 2 minutes with her in an elevator. You're my greatest competition.
Yeah, just listening to her talk. He knew.
I love it.
Connor doesn't believe in love, but like, that's the soulmates just clicking right there. I'm sorry, Connor. You don't believe in love at first sight, but I see it. So then when they exit the elevator, the other girl calls after, Lydia calls after, and that's how he finds out that her name is Rose. She's like, I don't know, why did you give away my name? I didn't want to do that. And as they walk over to this group of boys that is also double booked in their room, Connor realizes that those are his roommates and he's actually a part of this fight.
Right.
And Rose just wants the guys to give up the room. She's like, just be polite. Like, just give it to us.
Right.
I'm never going to do that. I'm going to make you work for it. And this is it's just switch with us. It's the polite thing to do. Why? Because you're a girl? Richard, Rose.
Richard. Where it all begins.
It all begins.
And I can think of like the Vine, and they're like, "What the fuck, Richard?" And I could just see this the whole thing happening.
Was so perfect.
I know.
Yeah, the way that guy enunciates, that is 100% how Rose says his name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Richard. So they decide that they're going to play a trivia game, and the winner will get the room. And it's just going to be it's boys versus girls, but they're nominating only one person to compete, and the guys pick Connor and the girls pick Rose. So it's like, okay, we're getting the sense that these two are the top contenders for both of their groups. They're very, very smart. I mean, we already know this about the two of them, but Connor's starting to understand that too. So it is truly such an incredible game that these 14-year-olds are playing, where they put all of these topics in a hat and they pull out a topic, and then they have to come up with the question themselves to quiz the other person, and then that person has to get the answer right.
I could never. I could never.
No, that is just so hard.
Ancient
But
Egypt.
I know, God. And at one point, they get a topic about Shakespeare plays, and Connor can tell that Rose really knows her shit with that one. But then there's a topic that they reach. I think it's Old Babylonia, maybe.
I think so.
I know they mention it, and then like Mesopotamia is also
Mm-hmm. Mesopotamia,
birthplaces of ancient
ancient
civilizations.
civilizations.
That's the topic. Just like, how do you come up with? I don't know how you would ever come up with questions. They're just very smart, but Rose doesn't know the answer. So the guys win, the girls lose, and at the end of it, like they've gathered this big crowd. It's taken a while for Rose to actually lose. They were very much neck and neck for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's cheering that the guys won, and all the guys are cheering that they won, and the girls are sad. But Rose reaches out and she like shakes Connor's hand, and he's surprised that she like accepts this loss. She just played by the
Right.
rules, whereas I always search for loopholes. Rose wasn't a carbon copy of me. I recognized she was someone else entirely. And I love just like seeing how similar they are, but then these differences that make them uniquely themselves, but why
Right.
these differences still just perfectly work in balance with each
Right.
other.
No matter what, they're going to play on an even playing field, no matter what the
Yeah,
stakes are.
exactly. Yeah. So Connor can recognize how smart she is. He knows that he's going to see her again in the future. Like, she's going to be on this academic circuit with me. So it's sort of like I could ask her out right now because she's really intriguing to me, but like, I really like being her competitor more right now. So I'm just going to leave it.
Right.
And then,
And at that time, all of Connor's relationships were manipulative and not
yeah,
anything for
yes.
attraction. But we don't know that yet, so spoiler
I
alert.
mean, yeah, it's fine. There's a part where she growled, I grinned. This is just completely the dynamic that we've come to know from them. It was just there from the very beginning. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I think the chapter ends with, I never realized how bored I had been with life, how mundane my surroundings looked, how unchallenged I'd become. I never realized all of these things until I met her.
And that's the thing. I mean, they are just through love and hate and longing and lust, everything is a perfect challenge for them.
Yes.
They
Yes.
just play off of each other so perfectly.
I love them lots. Okay, so now it is 11 years later. We are
11
back
years
in the.
later.
I know, gosh. We are
Yeah, so
back
Connor
in.
is 26 and Rose is
Yes.
25, I think.
Actually, I think Rose is
Or are they
26.
both 26? Okay.
Because there's a part in one of the chapters where they said they'd never let a 26-year-old woman get her way. So I think she's 26.
Okay.
I just remember reading that line very recently.
Yeah.
So it's Thanksgiving night, and I love it. Rose is currently struggling to take directions from Connor, like quite literal directions. Turn right. And she's like, I'm going to turn left. You can't tell me what to do.
Right, right.
But She is trying to drive to a parking lot for an unknown reason at this point.
Yes.
But they're going to a very specific parking lot. And when they get there, Rose is, you can see she's a little stiff, kind of like this is a sign of her being really stressed. She's like crossing her ankles and being very proper.
Yes.
And Connor can kind of recognize that she is uncomfortable in this moment.
Yeah, her like OCD tells are really starting to come out.
Yeah. And we learn that she's meant to be giving Connor a blowjob in this parking lot. And they're supposed to be caught doing this. And so, yeah, I can see Rose is they're both pretty private characters. They're not the ones that, between all 6 of the main characters, they're the ones with very minimal PDA. So having to
Absolutely.
give her husband a blowjob for someone to photograph, especially after she was so uncomfortable with the sex tapes being released, like this is just, it's riding that line. And yeah, she's not happy. Doesn't really want to do this, but she will.
It is
And
out of character for her, but she's willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, but Connor can kind of recognize that she's upset, so he's like, you know what, we're switching. I'll go down on you. She mentions when it comes to protecting the people I love, my list of don'ts decreases dramatically. They play our game, we don't play theirs. Ensemble.
My heart.
But I know.
And then I
just so
think
many
of
quotes
the
that I have right
kobolds,
now.
the young kobolds, and I'm like, they're all together.
Yes. And then there's this other quote: I'm more in love with him, conquering the world by his side, than I ever was as his competition. After coming from them being on opposing sides, we love seeing them actually as teammates.
Right.
It's so great seeing them as working together. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Rose agrees to the switch. Connor goes down on her. In the middle of this, Connor gets a text, and she looks at his phone because he's preoccupied. I love she types in his passcode and it's Jane's birthday.
That's actually my wedding anniversary.
Oh, so sweet. So the text is unfortunately a text from Lo. So that's like, no, I don't want to be thinking about him. But he's asking where Rose and Connor went. So now we're getting the sense that like they just completely ditched everyone and no one knows where they are.
Right. They didn't just go to the bathroom. They left.
Yeah. And in her head, Rose is thinking about a couple of large kinks that are in her and Connor's lives that they need to address, and that whatever they decide will ultimately determine whether they continue to grow her family. But she really does want Jane to have a sister because she had sisters when she was growing up, and that was very meaningful for her, and she wants Jane to have that same experience. And then another text pops up, and it's Reich. She's like, God, I don't want to be thinking about these men. But he's also asking, where the fuck are you guys? Like, are you coming back anytime soon? I think one of them mentions that Samantha's like pulling out scrapbooks and they're going through old
Reich
photos.
said Samantha just opened the photo albums.
Nobody wants to listen to Samantha reminisce about the past.
Please.
No. And then finally a text comes through that says they got the photo and it's going to be posted the following day from a WA, and they think to themselves, like, we won round 1 of this large game that we're playing, but at the end of the day, we're still in bed with the media, and no one knows about this except Connor and me. And this whole chunk of this chapter just completely gets to me. So one of the things that happened in Addicted After All was right after Maximoff was born. Well, throughout Lily's pregnancy and even before, everyone believes this stupid rumor that Lily is having a threesome. Like, Lily's in a relationship with Lo and Reich.
Right.
And when she becomes pregnant with Maximoff, lots of people think that Reich was the father. And then once Maximoff was born, they were like, we're tired of these rumors. We can lay them to rest. Let's just do this paternity test, and it'll definitively prove that Lo is Maximoff's father. So they did. And Celebrity Crush came back with this article being like, nope, that's an invalid paternity test. We don't believe it. Maximoff has dark brown hair, just like Reich, and he's not Lo's son.
That is so insane. Like, can you actually imagine? Poor Lily. It makes me crazy just because little Moffy has dark brown hair. They think that his dad is someone else. Like, what
Like, God
even?
forbid anybody else in the family has dark brown hair that he could have
Right,
inherited it from.
right,
And like the fact that they're brothers, like, yeah, he's going to share some similarities with Reich because he's related to Reich.
right.
But
It's so
it's just,
crazy.
it hurts my heart thinking about poor Maximoff having these rumors surrounding who his parents are. I hate it. But also in Addicted After All, Lo was so determined that Maximoff would never have to face these rumors. And he wanted Connor to squash this article from Celebrity Crush by working with Jonathan Hale to, like, Connor had the contacts, but Jonathan had the money. And he wanted them to work together to bury this article. And Connor was like, yeah, I'm going to do anything for you. And
Mhm.
they had gone to Jonathan's and they got distracted because Jonathan revealed that he was no longer sober and that he needed a liver transplant. Like his liver was failing, all of this stuff. So we never actually found out what conversation Jonathan and Connor had. At the end of Addicted After All, Connor just tells Lo, I'm handling it. You're not going to worry about it. I've got it covered. And that's all we know. And now we're starting to learn what actually happened, which is Jonathan had no
This is
way
how it's
to
being
bury this
handled.
article. He was like, yeah, Jonathan's
Yeah.
just like, we got to let it happen. And Connor said, absolutely no way. I'm going to take care of it. Like, I'm going to do this for Lo. I love Lo, and I'm going to do this for him. So he went to Rose and he asked her to help him, and they're going to stage a bunch of exclusive. They're going to be in these situations, and Celebrity Crush will obtain exclusive photos of Rose and Connor, and they're agreeing to bury this Maximoff paternity rumor.
And this also just goes to show Connor's growth as a person
Yes.
because he never would have done something like this in his late
No.
teens, early 20s, because there was no benefit for him. I mean,
Exactly.
this was solely to help his best friend and his sister in law and his nephew and his
Yeah.
family. And I mean, the way he grew up with his mother, she was basically just another person, not even his mom, really.
Yeah.
He never would have done that before. So you really see the way that his love for people has grown.
Yeah. That's I think that's like one of the reasons why I love this chunk of the chapter because it's so very apparent how far Connor has come. And I think they even said like this in here was a man who always weighs opportunity cost. This in no way benefit him. In fact, it cost him. And for the first time in probably his entire life, he was choosing a price with no reward for himself. It's just this
Exactly.
man who never believed in love, it's so clear how much he loves Lo and
Yeah.
his family. God, I love it.
I have chills.
I know. It's so powerful and meaningful. And we just get it in chapter one. And I'm just like, oh my God, look at you.
No,
I'm so
I'm
proud of
feeling
you.
Connor Cobalt is actually a cinnamon roll.
I know.
Surprise. He will go to the ends of the earth for the people that he actually loves.
Yes. I mean, it's a small group, but there is a group of people that are very meaningful to him. And then the chapter ends with Rose. She's like, when you asked me to do this, I think I fell in love with you all over again.
Yeah, because
Rose is like, this,
she always, forever would do anything
yeah,
for her sisters. But for Connor to do that, it really, it's,
yeah. It's just like this whole unlocked facet of him that she's now uncovered. She's like, there's more of you that I can love. Um, And she says, love, it meant nothing to him. Now it's guiding his choices. He's not just like Rose, but like very similar to Rose. She lets love guide her choices and he's
absolutely. Yeah.
following the way she did it. So it's the following day. Rose and Connor are sitting in their bedroom the morning after Thanksgiving. It's Black Friday, waiting for the photos to drop.
This is so funny.
Jane,
Like the first sentence, it's hilarious.
Jane is with them.
Because then you think about Jane, 20-year-old Jane, and you're like,
The hindsight makes it so much better.
I know.
I can already tell that she has bad taste in clothes.
Jane.
Yes, Rose is over here conducting an experiment to see whether Jane likes a Chanel purse or an ugly straw hat. And Jane picked the ugly straw hat.
She
and Connor
likes
tries
what she
to
likes.
Connor's trying to justify it as like the hat has tassels and that's just getting her attention. That's all it is. But like Jane just has her eclectic style. She's got her own taste in clothing.
She's going to pattern mix and until the day she dies.
Textures. Oh yeah, absolutely. She wouldn't be Jane Cobalt if she didn't.
Absolutely not.
So Connor just like watching this whole interaction with Rose and Jane on the bed, and he says that he wondered whether he would feel weak by a child. These are emotions that his mother refused to feel with him, but like he loves Jane wholeheartedly and he would do absolutely anything for her. Move mountains, part waters, like die for her, I'm certain. It's just, this was a man who was like, again, didn't believe in love. And when initially questioned, like, why do you want so many kids? It was purely because it would be more of him in the world and not because he ever thought he'd love these children.
Right. It would be the empire. But now it's the beginning of a family.
Yes. I just love seeing Daddy Connor.
I know. Oh. I know. And like in further chapters when he just like whispers little things to Rose and it's just the sweetest thing. It really is just the sweetest thing. And I wish I could see it on a show or something and actually watch it being acted out because it would just be so wonderful.
I'd turn each of those little clips into a never-ending loop and I'd just watch it forever. Just those teeny weensy little moments. And I think Connor kind of puts it pretty well where while he's watching Rose with Jane, she gives Jane this rare, warm smile, and he says that he clings to the rarities in life, the unusual fragments that open windows into a person's soul, and like if these things didn't happen often, or if these things happen more often, he wouldn't treasure them as much. And I think that's just the way I feel about all of these small moments with Rose and Connor of them being softies with each other and with their daughter, because for the most part we don't see them acting that way. They're very large and in charge and with armor up, they're ready to fight, and just seeing them when they're more vulnerable and being soft, it's like, yeah, I am going to treasure all of those moments. They're all my favorite parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are so rare.
I mean, really, they're kind of cold. They are kind of cold.
Yeah.
So
Rose
when
gives
you get
really stiff, unfeeling hugs. Yeah.
When you get these little sweet moments, you have to cherish them.
And I do. They're all like all of these tiny moments are my favorites between them. So then Rose again mentions these kinks that she and Connor need to work out before they can have other kids. Because Connor's watching her with Jane and he's like, what will it take for us to have another? I want more.
He wants an army of children.
He does. 8.
Yes, 8
has been their goal. They need 7 more at this point.
Could not even imagine.
I know. And so one of the kinks that Rose mentions is the sex tapes that Scott still has possession of. And there's absolutely no controlling when he drops, like when he sells more.
Right.
That's just something they don't have a say in. And then the other idea is Jane being in the media without her consent. Like, they're just it's too hard for them to keep her out of the media at this point. And she's just a baby. She doesn't know what's going on. And a lot of celebrities, like, I mean, this is a concept I feel most of us are pretty familiar with. We see a lot of celebrities in reality, dealing with keeping their children's faces out of paparazzi photos and just giving them a chance to grow up normally. But Rose and Connor feel like they can't actually do that. That is something they don't really have control over.
Yeah, I mean, they are the most famous family in the world. So no matter what, even though they're in Pennsylvania, even though they're in Philly, there's paparazzi parked outside 24/7. So they have absolutely no privacy.
And it's something that's like Krista and Becca have mentioned in their own like podcasts and just talking about these books. It's the fact that they live in Philly too, where there aren't a ton of other really famous people at their level, that like the paparazzi just completely fixate on them too. There's no one else in that city that they can really turn their attention to. They're
Right.
just,
And I mean, the only thing that would even come close would be football players and things like that, but that's not even close
not
to
the
their
same
level.
level.
Yeah.
Like it's like football family or like football players versus the Kardashians. Like who is going to
Exactly.
get more attention?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be the Kardashians. So Connor suggests that they can do an experiment, and what they're doing for Mafi right now by staging photos for the media, if they want to try and stage other moments and see if the media latches onto that and not onto Jane. Like if Jane is not
Right.
mentioned very much in the public, then that's a success. That's where they're trying to go with this. And agree to give themselves 6 months, and at the end of those 6 months, if they feel like Jane has not been in the media too much, they'll agree to expand their family. And if not, then Jane will be their only child, which I just doesn't compute. I know how big the
No, I
Commonwealth is.
cannot even imagine.
I
Ugh.
think that is just like that's the thing that holds me through this book, knowing what comes for them.
Right.
And I'm just like, it's okay. It all works out in the end. Everyone gets a happy ending. It's fine. And we get a little more context to this conversation that Connor and Jonathan had, and a little more, there's just more explanation about like Connor made this agreement with Andrea Delacourt, we met her in Thrive. She was at Rose and Connor's wedding and was mean to Lily.
Right.
So it's just like someone that we don't really like. And that just sort of gives you this sense of dread too, that this is a character that we really don't like, and now we're kind of putting trust into her with Rose and Connor and their plan with them, and I'm like, I just don't trust you, and I don't like that we have to put all of our faith in this woman.
Right.
It stresses me out.
And Andrea told me that if I wanted the article about Mafi gone, I needed something of equal caliber to replace it. So that's where they are now.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a pretty big thing to question a child's paternity and say that his dad is not really his dad. So like trying to find something of equal caliber it's got to be something pretty big.
It's so icky though. Like it just makes me feel so bad. And I try to think of things in real life. I really don't stay up on celebrity gossip, like whatever I see on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but I don't seek it out. So, I mean, but I can't imagine things like that actually happening.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think I've seen certain things, like I'm not seeking it out, but it does pop up occasionally. I think it was Kylie Jenner's daughter, one of her children, like slightly looked like her bodyguard, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, is the bodyguard actually?" And it went nowhere. It was like, no, Travis
Right.
is
Or the other
the
one I can
father,
think
and
of
everyone kind of
is
like took it, but
the other one I think about is just what's her name? Khloe Kardashian and OJ Simpson. But who knows?
yeah,
OJ's dead now, so
yeah,
we'll never know.
yeah.
And frankly, I don't care.
It is so icky. And like one of the people involved in this is a literal child. He's a minor, but like an infant. And why are you doing
Right.
this? Like Rose said, Jane can't give consent. And like my Maximoff can't give consent, and there's like really no reason that you need to be speculating about this child.
They literally can't talk. They babble. So you can't ask them a question.
I just stop trying to spread rumors about this kid that can't speak for himself.
Or baby.
Yeah. So yeah, just poor Muffy. Yeah, okay. So I think that was most of that chapter. So the next
and
one,
they say they have 6 months to take care of it, basically.
Yeah. 6 months, and Jane is either an only child or she's going to get siblings. So the next chapter, it's still the same day. Connor's gone down to the kitchen and he's making coffee. And he spots Daisy. She's sleepwalking into the kitchen right now.
Yes.
This is, again, something we saw a little bit of in Addicted After All. She got new medications for her PTSD, and one of the symptoms is sleepwalking. So this is the first time that Connor's really seen her sleepwalking, though.
Right.
And he's not going to disturb her. He's just going to watch her wander around a little bit. She like bumps into stuff. And
or Daisy.
I know. But then he starts talking with her, and he starts telling her about this guy that he met at boarding school named Theo Ballantyne. And he was this classmate at Faust, and Connor found him interesting.
I have to say one thing.
Yeah.
In the audio, the narrator says Ballantine, and that makes me crazy. That's all. Rose says Ballantyne. Rose says it correct, but
yeah,
Connor's narrator gets it wrong.
Yeah. I think it's Stephen Dexter in Hot House Flower: A Long Way Down as Reich. He calls it the Wesley clan. The redheaded Wesley clan. I'm like, it's Weasley.
Oh, no! I have to listen to that now. Stephen, of all people?
No. And then Teddy Hamilton. It always gets me in Charming Like Us for the charity golf tournament. He calls it boogie bar hopping when it's bougie bar hopping.
My God.
Boogie bar hopping. God.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yes. Okay, so Connor tells Daisy about Theo. He was a classmate at Faust, or I think it's Faust. He was a classmate at Faust, and Connor found him interesting and attractive. Again, something we saw in Addicted After All was Connor confessing to Lo that he has slept with men in the past. So we already know more about Connor, and we talk about it too in Kiss the Sky. We know Connor has not put a label to his sexuality, right, but we know that he has been with men and women at this point.
Right. I would say Connor, even though he doesn't label it, Connor's pansexual.
Yeah, he says that people interest him. But yeah, pansexual is probably the closest term to what his sexuality is. But he tells Daisy that they had sex and that this relationship lasted about a month before Connor got bored with him. That's basically how Connor's relationships worked, was like, you're interesting, now you're boring, so I'm cutting you out of my life. So this is how we can, I feel like this is just further evidence of like how special Rose is to him, that like constantly throughout the years she has never bored him in any facet. Like he's constantly interested in her, and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then Connor also tells Daisy, while she's still sleepwalking, that Theo now works for Haleco, and Jonathan has also discovered this connection between Connor and Theo, and he's kind of dangling this threat of like, stay away from Lo or else, and this or else is like, I'm gonna out you. And Connor just
like, he in some way would be corrupting Lo. Like, Lo cannot be corrupted. Please.
Yeah, I think Connor talks about it a little later, but it's basically like Lo is now in charge of Haleco and Jonathan isn't, but Lo and Connor are close, so like now Connor could potentially have more sway over Haleco than Jonathan could, and Jonathan doesn't really like that.
Right. No.
So it's one of those things where I don't like hearing it. It's all starting to add up more. We saw in Addicted After All how there was just this constant tension between
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan and Connor, and we're starting to see all of these pieces that it's because he had mentioned that Jonathan knew about him sleeping with a person in the past. Now we have a name to who this man is in Connor's past. We are seeing all of these threats and why Jonathan is feeling so threatened himself and why he wants to get back at Connor. It's just more context to their very strange relationship.
And also, Connor had his past relationships, they all signed NDAs as well. So technically, no one should be speaking about who Connor had a relationship with in the past.
Right. Right. So Daisy, again, she's still out of it for this whole conversation. And all of a sudden, Reich runs in and he's like, Connor,
Mm-hmm.
why are you doing nothing right now? You can't help her at all.
You're just
Reich,
standing there.
tries to, yeah, Reich lays her down on the floor and Connor's like, yeah, no, I wasn't going to do that. But he's like taking in all of this information, how Reich knows exactly what to do with Daisy in this moment. And he's like, okay, so Reich's seen this before. This is not a new thing.
Right.
And what else? He also tries to reach out to Reich a little bit by speaking in French with him because we know
Mm.
Reich speaks French. Reich speaks four languages that we know, or besides English, he speaks four other languages. And whenever Connor tries to speak to him in French in particular, Reich doesn't like it. He gets really angry and frustrated with Connor when he does.
And he won't
And
respond. He won't respond in French.
yeah, and I think in Hot House Flower, we know from Reich that he had to learn these languages because his mom was constantly pressing him to learn more, and he was always like, yes, kid. So he was saying, yes, of
Mm-hmm.
course, I'll learn this language. French and Russian are the two languages that are remind him most of his past and being that yes kid. We know why Reich is kind of like, I don't want to talk to you in this language. But yeah, Connor says, of all of the people in my life, I know the least about him. It's mildly annoying. Rose and Connor are definitely the kind of characters, like, they need to be in everyone's business. I keep referencing Addicted After All, but like, we saw it in that one a lot where we're starting to see some distance. Like, now that Reich and Daisy are together, it's like there's this smaller circle within the circle of the children of Jonathan Hale and their significant others. Like, they have their little unit, and Rose and Connor are not a part of that, and they don't like it.
Right.
They want to be in everyone's business. They even moved rooms in the house. They were down in the bigger, like, primary bedroom, the primary
Mm-hmm.
suite downstairs, and Rose was like, I don't like being so disconnected from my sisters. I need to move upstairs so that
Yeah.
I know their business more. So we can also see that Connor suffers from this too. And it's like, I just need to know more about you.
Right. It's like this little and also it's or I think Lo mentions it or they mention it about Lo that he's younger than Reich and
Mm-hmm.
Connor and Rose. So Lo feels that disconnect as well because he's not as old as the others.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, they all have these little dynamics within their dynamic
Yeah.
that have little changes.
Yes. They're despite being only a group of six, there are like these little cliques that have
Right.
kind of
Right.
formed.
You could be my best friend, but they can't be your best friend and
So Connor tells Reich that Daisy needs a new therapist,
mm-hmm.
and he offers Frederick as an option. She can go to Frederick. I trust him, obviously, and Daisy can afford to pay for his fee, all that. But there are ulterior motives to Connor offering this. It's not just out of the kindness of his heart, like, oh, Frederick's great. It's, I know how to manipulate Frederick because I've known him for so long. I know I can get more information about Daisy if Frederick is her therapist. Like, I'll
And
figure out
really,
her.
it's like Connor just wants to know like the inner workings of Daisy's brain
Yeah. Reich and
since her
Daisy,
PTSD.
yeah, Reich and Daisy are definitely still more on the outs. Like, despite just going through the whole click thing and
Mhm.
Rose and Connor feeling on the outs. I think it's Rose and Connor feel like they're on the outs, but they're trying to get their way in. Meanwhile, Reich and Daisy just want to be on the out. They're not going to be as open, and they're
Yeah,
like
they like to
keeping
have a
people out.
little bit of separation
Yeah.
in the bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, they're trying to. Connor's like, no, we're not going to do that. I want to know more. Like, I won't accept this as your dynamic with us. I need information about you guys.
Poor Frederick.
I know. He has no clue.
I know.
And also, he does have some clue because he's known Connor for like,
Connor started seeing Frederick when he was 12.
yeah. So it's been a long time. So Frederick does know what Connor is capable of, but also can't help falling for it.
Because Connor also is like, I'm that much smarter than you and I have this IQ. And, Connor always holds those things above people's heads.
Yeah. So then we also see mention of Reich's surgery. Again, something at the end of it, Addicted After All, with Jonathan and his liver failing. Reich is a match and can be a donor for Jonathan. So he is going to have a liver transplant surgery with Jonathan and help his dad. And it's a lot because Reich just has this really complicated relationship with his father. He just really doesn't want to be beholden to his dad, and this is an instance where like I am his only match. Lo was not a match for Jonathan, and he wanted to be the first choice to donate part of his liver, and he can't. So it's up to Reich, and Reich is like, I'm gonna do this for I'm doing this for my dad, but it's more so for myself. And Connor can recognize how selfless this action is, like how very different Reich is from Connor with the selfish guy and the selfless guy.
And it's also like, Reich, as much as he doesn't want to be, he is a yes man to make people happy. But God, it makes me so crazy. It makes me so mad that Reich was a match. I just want Jonathan to suffer. Just suffer for all of the wrongs that you gave people over the years.
Yeah, that you've inflicted on your children, the verbal abuse that you inflicted on Lo, and the neglect that you showed Reich.
And the manipulation, just you dug your grave, now live in it.
Yeah, and what else he does in this book.
I feel like this is going to be a long podcast.
Yeah. We're only, God, we haven't even reached chapter 4. This is what I love though, is like really digging into.
No, that's the thing. It's like, this is the true deep dive. Like, my husband used to watch a podcast of Friday Night Lights, and they would do one episode every podcast episode. But this is like, we are really talking about everything and explaining things. Yeah, I love it.
I love doing that, but also for these books in particular, it's the end of a series too. So there are all these threads that are getting tied together, like all of these threads that are closing, and you can't not talk about them.
I know. And we haven't even gotten to Scott yet.
I know. He's still a long way away. Okay, so I think Reich surgery, yes.
Reich surgery and Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah, so so all of a sudden, Lily runs into the kitchen with a lot of urgency, accidentally waking up poor Daisy. And Connor knows exactly what Lily is here to talk to her about, but he's going to play dumb. I love it. He's like, what do you want to talk to me about? I already put that sticker with Team Razy on my limo.
Can you imagine?
And Lily's just like, thank you for that. I appreciate it. She's so serious about it. And I just want to picture this limo lasts so long into the Leica series, and I just want to picture him riding around with Team Razy.
I'm like, wait a second. Jane rides in this limo with Thatcher. What? Why? They're billionaires. Why do they still have this limo that Jane was born in? Sentimental value?
It
What's
must
going on?
be. This is the place that my child was born. I can never get rid of it. It
They
is
really
iconic.
kept up with those oil changes. I
They
mean,
did. I mean, I guess they have the money that they could.
yeah.
But yeah. So Lily then shows him the Celebrity Crush article, and there's a part that irritates him. And it's like the headline is Connor Cobalt is caught going down on Rose Calloway in a parking lot. He's annoyed that they're using her maiden name. He's like, no, she's Cobalt. She gave up. He likes it. It's meaningful to him because she chose it. He did not force her to change her name at all. We see this in the Kiss the Sky bonus epilogue, the Bora Bora honeymoon scene, where
And
she,
that's huge for Rose. She is such an independent person. So for
yeah,
her to drop her last name, that's huge.
and take her husband's last name instead. Yeah, but yeah, so he's irritated that they used her maiden name, and he uses that irritation as his way to manipulate Lily into thinking that
Hmm.
he doesn't know that this article was coming out, that they were caught. So Lily is over here worried about how Rose is going to handle this. She's like, I came to you first because I'm worried about Rose, which is fair because after the sex tapes came out, Rose didn't take it too well, and this is sort of an adjacent type of thing that's happening. So yeah, it's do we think Rose is going to take this well? And then we overhear this argument between Rose and Lo.
Yeah.
And Connor like books it. He's like, "Okay, they're arguing. I know what this is about. I got to go help. I got to go take care of this situation." So Reich and Daisy are kind of confused about what's going on. Lily is explaining to them while Connor heads towards Rose and Lo. And those two, they're holding their babies. I love that they're I love seeing them being parents. I just felt like I needed to mention that.
I have to say one thing. Connor says she won't be embarrassed, she'll be pissed. I say, and I've personally never been embarrassed in my life, and I won't start now.
No. I feel like this is something that we see constantly mentioned. I can't remember what book it is, but Lily's like, "Does Connor ever get embarrassed?" And I think it irritates Reich at certain points too, where I think it's the part in Hot House Flower actually, when Reich pulls out and comes on Daisy's face in the motel and Connor catches
Yes,
him.
yes,
And Reich is over here like trying to embarrass Connor, being like, Daisy saw your sex tape. And Connor's just like, no, this isn't affecting me. This is just like, okay, now I know that Daisy has seen me have sex, but I'm not
right.
embarrassed by this.
No, it does not affect me in that way.
No, Connor can never be embarrassed, no matter what. Like if his sister-in-law seeing him have sex doesn't embarrass him, then him being caught going down on Rose is not going to do it.
Right.
So yeah, Connor goes to try and break up this fight between Rose and Lo, and basically Rose is upset that Lo seemed to actively look at this photo. She's like,
Right.
no one forced you to look at it. You could have
Right.
seen the headline and not looked. And Lo's like, I just want this scrubbed from my brain.
Right.
And she's like, why aren't you more upset that they caught me in this position? He's like, well, why weren't you like, this is what you were doing? We were texting you last night, worried where you were. We were calling hospitals trying to find where you guys were. And you guys were going to a parking lot to have sex. Like,
Yeah.
why weren't you telling us this? You could have gone to, like, there are so many more places that you could have gone if you wanted privacy where you wouldn't have been caught. And then he mentions, I think it's the Calloway's treehouse.
Yeah.
And then Connor's like, why haven't you ever invited me, darling? And Lo is like, my door's always open. But we see this flirty banter between Lo and Connor that's just like it's never changed despite the fact that Lo knows Connor's sexuality, that he is attracted to men. It's like
Hmm.
that has changed nothing for him.
Right.
They
They're still
still
best friends.
they still maintain this flirty banter, but this fight ends with Lo just very earnestly telling them, "Give us a heads up the next time that you're gonna go do this, please." A moment of Lo like sounding like the responsible adult, and like the role reversal
Right.
between him and Rose and Connor who are usually the ones saying this. And normally Rose and Connor would be this way, but this is the secret that they have to keep from Lo. Like he doesn't know what they're doing to protect Mafi at this point.
Right.
They're doing this
Right.
for him, and it's really hard for it, like Rose especially, it's kind of hard for her to lie when he's berating her a little bit about like, why aren't you being more responsible? And she's like, I'm
Right.
freaking doing this for you.
Right. Next time you both disappear, even to make out, which must be like an annual event for you two, just let us know where you're going, okay?
Annual, yeah. So Rose and Connor are just like, yeah, they're definitely not used to being told what to do. Connor thinks in his inner monologue, in his head, oh, when we participated in the reality show, Rose asked me to play her game. We were supposed to be us, no performing. We were always supposed to be ourselves. Now I'm asking Rose to play my game, to find the loopholes,
Mm.
to take the manipulative, deceitful roads, to do anything to achieve a goal. I think it's really interesting to see, like, that we get to see both parts of it. So we got to see them being their truthful selves in Kiss the Sky. And now we have to see them being manipulative and deceitful in Fuel the Fire.
Their family,
Yeah.
especially. And that's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, Rose
So hard.
is just so close with her sisters. So for her to keep this, even though it's got good intentions, they're doing it for the betterment of their kids and their family.
Yeah.
Like for her to keep this from them is a lot.
Yeah. And Connor, I think, at one point notes that, like, her acting skills need improvement.
It comes up a lot.
Yes. They grade each other on their acting skills a lot through this book.
Yes. I give you an F.
But he is grateful to have Rose by his side. Again,
Mhm.
they're teammates at this point. They're no longer competition. They are teammates.
Absolutely.
And the chapter ends with everyone like kind of going their separate ways. And Reich calls to Connor, and he doesn't really say much, but he's very suspicious. Connor can tell that like Reich is very intelligent and very smart. He just
Yes.
doesn't show his smarts the way that Connor does. And he's smart enough to know that something's going on, that Rose and Connor wouldn't just, this is so out of character for them to just run off to have sex and not tell anyone. What are you guys doing?
What's going on?
Yeah, and to be caught by the media too. Like not just like you guys again, what is going on? You guys are smarter than this. There's something else here. And Connor's like, I know Reich would want to help, but he can't. His heart is too on his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
They don't Connor doesn't think that Reich would be as good a liar. And
Right.
Rose is not necessarily a great liar either, but he would rather have Rose on his team than Reich.
Right, because Rose and Connor are more even playing field. And Reich, even though he is so incredibly intelligent, I mean, most of what he did was for his mom and just to make his family happy and
Yeah.
not necessarily for his own personal gain.
Right.
So, I mean, he's got all of this knowledge, but he doesn't necessarily find it useful
Right.
or use it to manipulate for sure.
Yeah. I think because in some facets he wasn't being manipulative, but he had to lie and be deceitful for almost his entire life up until the start of these series because no one could know that he was Jonathan's son. He had
Right.
to hide that relationship. And he doesn't want to go back to that. And I think Connor wouldn't want to force him into having to lie again, even if he would want to do it. So yeah, the chapter basically ends with Connor being like, I'm sorry, Rick, but I have to bench you. You're not going to participate in
Right.
this. So Rose and Connor are currently in one of the bathrooms for the next thing that they have to do for the media, which is Rose needs to dye her hair.
This is one of my favorite chapters.
I do love this chapter.
I don't know if it's the next chapter where they're actually at the place or if it's all in the same chapter, but Lily in this chapter kills me.
Yeah, I think it might be a little later, but yeah, I love all of them so much.
Yeah.
Rose can't go to a stylist to do her hair because one, the media could catch them, like other media sources could catch it before Celebrity Crush does, or stylists could tip them, like so many things. So they have to do it themselves, and
Discreetly.
Connor's gonna do it for her because Rose, again, she is OCD, so like getting her hands dirty in the developer, just not a it would it'd be too hard for her.
Yes.
And she's already stressed as it is, so like everything's heightened. She loves her hair so much.
Right. Her hair is like her armor.
Yes. So she's already stressed about this idea that she's going to destroy her beautiful hair. She even mentions like when she was younger and her mom was like, "You should do highlights because they're trendy." She's like, "No, I'm not doing that to my hair."
Yeah.
And now we're just going to go with a full bleach job.
Let me just say, personally, bleaching my hair was one of the worst decisions I ever made for myself because I'm still trying to fix my hair after that. Yeah, it's a bad idea, especially if you don't do it right.
Yeah. But I mean, it's Connor Cobalt. He's going to try and do it as right as possible because
Absolutely.
he wouldn't do anything
Absolutely.
wrong. But we just see this back and forth again between the two. Like a lot of this chapter is just the back and forth between the two of them, where she just doesn't want to give in to Connor, but also she like kind of does. She's like, this is kind of turning me on a little bit.
Right. And Connor's also trying to like take her mind off of the whole thing.
Yeah, he's definitely trying to distract her. And Rose is asking him questions, but they're like Rose Cobalt brand of questions. So, what part of me would you murder? Would you rather make love on goat's blood or cut off my tongue? And then, like, would you share me? And it's he would murder no part of her. He would make love to her on goat's blood, and he would share her with no one.
Right. Yeah. He would never share her.
No.
Absolutely not. Rose is too much to be shared. Like,
Yeah.
no one could ever fulfill her or keep up with her the way that Connor can.
Yeah. I also like the way Connor puts it. He was like, I dominate you so much in the bedroom that any other man would just be like left completely bereft. You would be so focused on me that you would never pay attention to any other man.
Right.
That, yeah. So it's not worth it. It would never
No.
happen.
She says, I dream of murdering your smile. I love her.
She's so her. But also, like, reading into Connor's answers, I'd rather make love to you on goat's blood because, like, cutting off her tongue means that she'd never be able to speak and he'd never be able to, like, verbally spar with her
Right.
and hear all of her thoughts. You know that's why he chose goat's blood.
Absolutely. That's their lifeblood. Their back and forth, their banter.
Yeah. So then Lo interrupts them to say that they're leaving soon. They're going to go to a rock climbing gym for Reich before his surgery.
Yes.
And they thought they had more time. Willow is babysitting the kids and she's shown up, so they're going to leave. But obviously, like, Rose has this developer in her hair right now. They have to wait for this to set.
30 minutes.
Yeah. So there's another bit where really small where Connor tells her she needs to work on her acting. She's like, yeah, I know. But she's grateful that Connor is on her team. And I just love going from the chapter previous where Connor was like, I'm so happy that I have her by my side. And then next chapter, I'm so happy Connor's on my team. Like,
Right.
They just love being teammates. It's so
right.
Sweet.
It really, I mean, marriage is a partnership, but their marriage is a partnership. Like, it is the epitome of equals.
Truly. Just so beautiful. And it's constantly mentioned. I think it's in this next chapter that they mention it. So I'll hold off. So Lo opens the bathroom door and discovers what Rose is doing. And then Lily and Daisy come in.
God. This actually makes me sad with Lily and Daisy. Like, okay, so now this is chapter 6. So they're traumatized by Lo's bleaching, by her hair.
Yes, they are so shocked. They're like, Rose, you said you'd skin a cat, before you ever dyed your hair. And she just turns, she's so bad at acting that she's like really trying. And she goes, maybe I have. And it's like, this is so jarring. Was it? I can't remember who says it. I think it's Lily. They're like starting to tear up.
Right,
They're
you're scaring
so.
me. I never thought this would happen. Her voice cracks. Lo frowns and looks down at his wife. Are you crying? And Lily wipes her eyes. Rose is trying not to cry. Daisy looks upset. I didn't predict this. I couldn't have. My
It's
God.
just, you can count on so few things in life, and one of them is Rose's hair.
It's true. Rose's hair is like it's like Marsha Brady
Yeah.
brushing her hair 100 times on each
Is
side
that
every night.
mentioned in this book
It
where,
is. It is.
in this chapter where they're like, the brushing of the hair was a rumor perpetuated by one of you two.
Wait, didn't you used to brush your hair 300 times a day? I can still brush my hair even if it's blonde, and the absurd frequency is a rumor that one of you started behind my back.
Which actually we did see in Ricochet, because they're like, when did we do this? New Year's? And we see it in Ricochet during during the New Year's scene with Lily and
Yeah.
Daisy, and they talk about how often Rose brushed her hair.
My
But
God.
they're so cute. So Connor is like coming to her defense, and then Reich comes in. So Rose has been wearing Connor's clothes just so that she's not ruining her own with the bleach, like,
Hmm.
because yeah. And it's kind of tight across her bust, and she crosses her arms at one point, and the buttons are like straining and
Right.
popping right at her boobs. And when Reich comes in, he first sees her bleached hair and is like, "What?" But then his eyeline unfortunately goes down to her boobs,
Hmm.
and he like stares at them a little longer, and we see this moment of possessive Connor, where he's
Right.
like, Rose was literally just talking about uh sharing herself with another man. I'm like,
Right.
even in the context of Reich Meadows, I don't like this, and gives a very genuine fuck you to Reich at one point, and it's just like, what is happening here?
And then Lo smacks the back of his brother's head before I move a muscle. Get it together, right?
Come on. And yeah, so Connor's just on edge at this point.
Hmm.
Also here, we also hear about this second group. We've kind of mentioned it a little bit at this point, but the second group that has a name in the core six. We already have the hot tempered triad. Now we have the older kids club, and that's Connor, Rose, and Reich. That they're just constantly talking about Rose and Reich's younger siblings, and I mean they're the older ones. They're the wiser ones. So Lo is over here like, what, do you guys have some kind of older kids club? I was joking. Poor Lo.
And they're only a year older. I
Yeah.
mean, but Connor would also say, and also a year smarter, or X amount of years smarter, just because no one can touch Connor's
Right.
brain.
Right. So Reich gives Rose a pair of climbing shoes, and then everyone like leaves to give them privacy. That's why Reich had come in. He wanted to give her the shoes.
Hmm.
Everyone leaves to give them privacy so Rose can wash out her hair, and they'll leave. And Rose tells Connor that he failed in his acting skills because he was genuinely mad at Reich. And Connor is taking absolutely no pride in this idea that Rose is trying to be fake and act like he does, hiding true emotions and
Hmm.
all of that stuff. He doesn't like that she's being fake like him.
Right.
And he rinses out the bleach, and unfortunately, it was not long enough. Rose now has orange hair.
I've experienced that before. It
I
is
have two.
horrible.
Yeah, no, I was not happy being a redhead. So, but yeah, the developer was burning her at this point, so they
Right.
had to wash it out. It was just, that was, yeah. And then they're still turned on, so they have sex. I love it. There's a point where Rose is like, oh God, and Connor like smacks her butt, and she doesn't know what she did. And he's like, I'm gonna have to figure out a new punishment for you because slapping your butt doesn't seem to do anything. She goes, I don't, what did I say? He's like, you said God.
Right.
when I'm here. She's like, it's a euphemism.
You thanked God again. It's a euphemism. It's an annoying euphemism when I'm the one who makes you come. God damn it, Connor. Ruined me for things like this.
Well, yeah, every time you say thank God, you're like, no,
Yeah.
Connor.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, they bring up this idea that Rose was a virgin when she started her relationship with Connor, and Connor was not. But
Right.
like, despite these differences in their sexual experiences, Connor has always viewed her as an equal. Just because she did not have nearly as much sexual experience as him, like, that has never affected how he sees her. She is not some more naive or innocent like, they're equals, and I love
Right.
that.
Because also for Connor, it was like a first for him because he never had an emotional attachment to
Yeah.
his prior experiences.
Yeah.
It was always for personal gain.
Yes. Yes. This was, yeah, so it's just, they are very much on equal
Yeah.
footing.
It's right here. I have all of you. I reply, but Rose, I'm married to you. I never weigh my experience against your lack of experience and think you're less than me. You're always and always will be my equal.
Yeah. Did I forget to tell you? You need your computer, your mic, and your tissues.
Yeah, I don't have. I might have tissues from like a swag bag or something here. I actually, you know what? I do. I have Catherine Cowell's tissues right here.
Perfect. So the chapter ends. Rose discovers what color her hair is. It's orange.
It
She's
makes me sad for her. Like, just
yeah.
because she's so type A, I mean, it never could have gone correctly given the time that they had, but for her to actually have to leave the house with orange hair
Yeah.
is so maddening for her.
Yes. Yes. And
And she
on
has to wear
top
sneakers.
on top of that, she has to wear sneakers. They're going rock climbing. She's just not feeling herself in this moment. And Connor can tell that she's feeling stressed by all of
Mm-hmm.
these things, and he tells her that his time is going to come, that his day being the one in the media spotlight, that that will be soon. So they get to the rock climbing gym and the sisters are talking. Rose, we see a little bit of her checking Twitter, and Rose is checking Twitter, and we see some of the tweets that fans have mentioned her in,
Right.
like talking about the photo of them in the parking lot, about how she doesn't love Connor because she never acts like she does, the fact that she has sex tapes on porn sites and is now being caught going down in a parking lot. There's one that's from at Good Witch, ew, Rose Cobalt, and she's sort of like, a witch telling me that I'm gross. The irony.
Right. And
A
it's so
good
funny
witch.
because, I mean, personally, my husband and I, we are not like
Yeah.
PDA hand holders, whatever. Not everyone has to be that way to make
No.
their marriage work.
Yeah, it's like their love for each other is not something that needs to be proven publicly. Like,
Or even
I don't need to
explained.
prove anything to you
Right.
by being affectionate. Like, this is between the love they have for each other is between Rose and Connor, and that's the only two people that need to actually be able to witness and see it. That's it.
That's it. They don't have to answer to anyone.
No. And while she's on her phone, she sees this text from Connor where he's talking about her memory. Like, you have such a good memory, then you'll remember when you were 14 and I beat you at trivia and you leaned in and shook my hand. And she was like, I was trying to squeeze your hand so hard that it like broke your hand. And he's like, you didn't try hard enough. But Rose then reflects on how after that she thought she was so smart she was going to be able, like, she lost the trivia but she was going to be able to beat Connor at Model UN, and she did not. And it wasn't until she was 17 that Dalton actually beat Faust in Model UN. But this was also the year that she caught Connor coming out of the bathroom
Mm-hmm.
with another guy, and it was very clear from their body language what they were doing. And it was at that moment that she learned that Connor, she says, he told me 5 words. I don't
Look at genders.
Yeah, I don't look at genders. And that was enough of an explanation for her. But it was also like a special moment for her because Connor just puts up so many shields and
Mhm.
armor. It's so hard to know who the true him was. And she was like, this is a new facet of him, like the true him that
And
I've
I
learned about.
also like thinking about this series and when these books were written, I think with Connor's character and his sexuality, it was a little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have, I mean, sure, we had LGBTQ books, but not necessarily characters that had such a different take on their sexuality
Yeah.
like we do with Connor.
Right.
And then that really gives us a good mold into the Like Us series.
It does.
Yeah.
He helps tee it all up for
Hmm.
for us readers to like
Yeah.
wrap our heads around. Yeah. And so yeah, Rose is very understanding by Connor's stance on his sexuality. She's never pressed him about it again.
Hmm.
Um that's it, yeah, that's just who he is. So she says there was a reason why he hid. What I really learned that day was that the world might not have been ready to accept Connor, and that's a bigger shame than anything.
Yep.
But I have every real part of him, every part I love. Even if the world may not understand him, I do. Yeah, you do, Rose.
She really does.
She does.
I mean, the way Krista and Becca just write their soulmates,
I
it's
know.
like nothing else. That no one else matters except that couple.
So also mentioned during this chapter, Rose is like on her phone texting with Connor, looking at Twitter, and the sisters are having this conversation, and they're like, "Are you texting Connor right now? Why are you on your phone while you're with us?"
Right.
So that's kind of like where we leave the girls.
Hmm.
Into the next chapter is Connor's point of view. They're on the other side of the gym, and Lo is on the phone for work. He got a phone call, and this is like a weekend kind of thing. So it's kind of obvious that this is sort of an emergency
Right.
situation. And it's that GBA, who I don't know if I've actually mentioned on the podcast, but Princesses of Philly was aired on network TV, and the network was GBA.
Right.
They
It's like
had,
ABC.
yeah, so they had an exclusive contract with
Hmm.
GBA that anything that they wanted to air on network TV had to go through GBA. I don't think I've ever actually mentioned that, but it's an important thing to remember. So they are like breaking contracts with Haleco and the commercials that they want to air. Like Haleco's largest customer base watches GBA, and they're like, we can't put it on ESPN. Like the dads aren't going to want to buy the baby products.
Right. This will be detrimental for Haleco to
Right.
lose these sponsorships.
Yeah, exactly. So Lo is kind of stressing over this. He's trying to figure out who can help put out this fire. He mentions Theo's name at one point, and
Hmm.
that gets Connor's attention. And then Connor's also sitting here reflecting about like how much Lo means to him. It's so sweet. Like, what does he say? My 26-year-old self is more. No, he's someone I'd never entertain or associate myself with in college unless he was of use to me. I never really needed him though. I had no reason to use him. Still, my 17-year-old self would have said, "Good, you found the rich bastard with connections. You needed him. You used him.
Now
Now
let
let
him
him
go.
go." My 26-year-old self is more aware of what certain people mean to me beyond end games and goals and profits. My life is dull without Lauren Hale. If I let him go, I'll be searching for someone like him, sharp-tongued, trusting, sensitive, and cynical, and I'll realize that Lo exists alone as a unique individual without a duplicate.
Yeah. That is poignant, truly.
So poignant.
Because, I mean, Lo, God, and Addicted to You, Lo brought nothing to the table.
No. He was just an addict who was struggling. That was
Right.
it. That was his
And
whole character. An
yeah,
angry
I mean,
addict.
just the way they all grew and came together. And now the way that Connor will go to the ends of the earth for him and for everyone, it's so huge.
It is. We love this growth. So, Connor can also tell. Reich is watching this. Reich is watching Lo on the phone. And Connor can tell that he's worried about Lo's mental state because that
Mhm.
was something big in Addicted After All of can Lo handle being a CEO? Is
Right,
this going to force him to drink?
right.
but Connor can see that even though Reich is worried, he's really taken a step back and been like, I'm going to let my brother handle this. I believe in him. And it's huge for Lo and Reich's relationship that it's been improving because people like Reich is believing that Lo is a lot stronger than he was.
And he doesn't necessarily need to rely on Reich as a crutch
Yeah,
to
right.
keep him sober. Lo can make those decisions. And then if it comes to D-Day that he does need Reich will be there.
Right.
But Reich trusts Lo to make good decisions for himself.
Yeah, yeah. And then, yeah, so while all of this is happening, where we left the sisters, they're now like, they want to read what's on Rose's phone. They're like, she's like, whatever she's doing, they want to see what's on her phone.
Yeah.
She's like holding her phone up above her head while her sisters are jumping at it. And Connor's just like smiling, like, this is my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cute. So then the girls come over. And Rose is like, if you want to read what's on my phone, I have to read what's on your phone and your phone. You have to share, tit for tat.
Right. And we don't want to see what's on Daisy and Reich's phone.
No, we don't.
No.
So they are then getting ready to start climbing. And Connor can still see how anxious Rose is right now. And that she really doesn't want to climb. So he like turns around and grabs her harness and breaks one of the buckles on it.
Right.
And then when he comes over to her, he's like, oh, you can't use this harness. It's broken. She's like, this is the universe giving me a sign. I should not be climbing today.
Right.
You can't give me another harness. It doesn't matter. And Reich is over here like, yeah, I actually understand this. Climbers can be superstitious and I respect
And he mentioned Sully.
Yes, he does mention Adam Sully, which is like a curious person for Connor because Sully doesn't really come around the rest of the Core Six, but he is still a very meaningful friend to Reich.
Right.
And then, so Rose sits out, everyone else goes climbing. Connor pulls out his phone. He sees some texts from Frederick. Apparently, Calloway and Cobalt are too close in Frederick's contact.
Right. Poor Frederick.
I know.
He fat
like, Connor wasn't even trying at this point.
Right. Oh, God. The doctor-patient confidentiality, Frederick. Come on.
Yes. So Frederick meant to be texting Daisy. I think he's asking about her sleep schedule and can I know more about it? And Connor's like, wrong person.
Right.
But tell me what her answers are.
Right.
And Frederick is trying very hard to shut this down. Like,
pretend you didn't see that.
Yeah. Poor Frederick. And yeah, only if you give me her answers to the questions. No, I already did a favor by taking your cat. We're even.
Yeah.
So Connor's like, I'm going to have to find another way to get the dirt on Daisy.
Yeah. And it's not malicious. He's just curious and nosy.
He is. Yeah, he wants to know more about her. Part of it is because of Rose. Rose wants to know what's going on with her sister too. Mm-hmm. But like, there's just a part of him that needs to know these things. He's a fixer. And it's like, how can he know how to fix things if he doesn't have the full picture? He needs the full picture kind of thing.
Right.
So I love Lily's also very cute in this scene too.
This is my favorite.
So they're climbing. Lily starts climbing. She's got like 0 upper body strength.
Just picture her tiny little spaghetti arms and her wobbly little legs.
Yes. So she starts climbing and she can get herself up a little bit and then she can't. And she can't reach it. So I love the way it's in here. After 4 failed attempts, Lo walks over and puts his hands on her ass and pushes her up with complete ease. Lo, oh my God! I can so easily picture her just saying it like that.
And Lo's just like, and just keeps walking. And it's like no big deal.
Yes. And then she's too high up. So she's just sort of like stuck on, can't figure out what to do. And she's like, and then Daisy brings out her phone and rings a bell. And she's like, yeah, congrats, Lily. You did a great job. And then Lily like rappels down and then kisses the ground.
You're only 4 feet off the ground. That's shorter than your husband, if you need reference. Like, poor Lily. And she's kissing the ground because she survived the 4 feet. I don't have a lot of upper body strength, but I think I can make it higher than 4 feet.
Yeah, I've definitely made it up a little higher than that.
Oh my God.
She's
Poor
so
Lily.
cute. Yes. So they continue climbing, and throughout this time, Rose is sitting over by the window waiting for Walter Ames. He's the
Mm,
WA that texted Connor
yeah.
in the first chapter. He's the photographer that's going to take the picture of her hair. So she's like over by the windows waiting for him to get that picture, but they can also see that she's been alternating between sanitizing her hands and petting her hair.
Right.
So she's still very anxious. Like this
Yeah.
is
And
affecting.
she's like ticking. She's going through her
Yeah.
motions right now.
And Connor can tell, Lily and Daisy can also tell, so they want to go over and talk with her, and the guys are left to clean up the equipment. And that's when they start talking about the text conversations,
Right.
because Daisy was sort of hesitant about letting anyone see what
Right.
was on her phone. So they're like, Reich, you sext? And
Yeah. This is chapter 9 now.
yeah. Yeah, people can hack into that shit, you know. It's not like I've sent full frontal nudes. That statement implies that you've sent nudes before. No one fucking asked you to insert yourself into this conversation, Cobalt. Those of us with IQs in the zero point zero 0.01 percentile have an invitation to all conversations. I know you're not privy to this, so don't be upset. There are geniuses, there are rational people, there are idiots, and then there's you.
He's such a dick.
And Reich's over here like, you're such a dick. If I were to say that to anyone, I would have been punched in the face.
Right.
How are you not punched in the face?
My dogs just came in here, so
That's okay.
if you
We
hear
have
them.
no. That's perfect. I appreciate it because usually my dog's the one that comes in, and other dogs are more than welcome to join the podcast.
Okay.
So he like this leads into this whole thing where Reich and Lowe become really serious of Connor. During the Paris riot, you weren't really you didn't you were able to dodge a lot of the fight. And
Mhm.
like, did you learn this because you were bullied in school and people beat you up and you grew up and learned how to avoid this kind of thing? And Connor's over here like, no, I was actually quite popular in
I was
school.
well liked and
Yes.
hated by almost no one.
And I also took jujitsu and taekwondo and fencing, so I'm like very skilled in fighting too.
Of course you are. Like, why wouldn't he be? He's just so perfectly well rounded.
Yes, just a complete jack of all trades, quite
Mm-hmm.
literally all trades. So then Lowe takes another phone call for work, and this time Reich goes over to Connor and is like, is Lowe doing okay? And Connor also knows a little bit more insight with how Lowe's handling things because their buildings are really close together.
Mm-hmm.
So they have lunch
Right.
during work days. So cute. They have their little lunch dates, their
I
little
know.
romance lunch date. Yeah. Connor assures Reich that Lowe's doing okay, but then Reich asks Connor if he'll take care of Lowe and Daisy if anything happens to him during his surgery. And Connor's like, no, you're not going to die by this surgery. Like, I think of course he's going to take care of them, but he's not going to, like, he doesn't want Reich going into this thinking that he's going to die.
Right. He doesn't want to placate him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reich is so healthy and strong, and his body is so healthy.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen.
No. But he says he'll make Reich a promise, and I always keep my promises. You die climbing, and I'll take care of them. We both know that you're not going to die during that surgery, and you're not going to die any other way than by your own pursuit. And then he says if he's so afraid of leaving the people he loves, then maybe he should start rethinking his hobbies. Which, like, on the one hand, yes, I think, but it's more, I can't picture Reich without his hobby of, like, calling climbing a hobby for Reich feels so, like, diminishing what
Right. It's like
rock climbing
inferior.
actually means.
Climbing is Reich's. It's like the definition of Reich. It's
Yeah.
what makes him him.
Yeah, so it's more like don't give up the hobby, just maybe trust in who's around to take care of people, but
Right.
also like learn to not take as many risks. Like I think you can still take risks but not put yourself in danger where you're going to die.
Right. Like free solo versus harnesses and things like that, because climbing is Reich's life force.
Right.
It's what gives him purpose.
Yeah, obviously this will get touched on a whole lot more in Reich's book, but it's brought up here, and you can't not mention it. And Reich does appreciate this promise, like, but in his own way, he flips Connor off.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, but he's like, it feels genuine to him. He's like, thank you for this, and our friendship may be odd, but I at least can call it one. I love this dynamic between Connor and Reich.
Yeah.
Their whole friendship progression is one that's like really fascinating to me because
it's so misunderstood, because both of them would still like die for each other. Both of them would still put their lives on the line for each other, but they're also like oil and water.
yes. And they have to put in a lot of work to be friends, and I like seeing when they do that and find some way to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
It's just so fascinating. So now we're at chapter 10. Rose is awoken one night. Her phone is ringing.
This is a good chapter. My God.
Oh boy. So it's Samantha calling. Rose picks up and she's like, Rose, what have you done to your hair? It's like, I can't remember if it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 3:42 in the morning.
3:42 a.m.
And like, what is Samantha doing up at 3:40? 3:42,
right,
waiting for the headlines about her children to immediately call them and be like, what's going on? Of course she is. Yeah, so she's initially calling Rose about her hair and like, I'll book you an appointment at the stylist so that we can fix this. This cannot be your hair color. But she mentions that she's sorry that Rose and Connor's bid on a house wasn't accepted. And this is where we learn that Rose and Connor wanted to buy a house diagonally across from their current home.
Right.
Because at some point, if they want to grow their families, they need their own houses. They can't all 6 live in a house together forever. But they don't like the idea of being miles and miles apart, which
I don't like.
I do too. I don't like the idea of it either. I love close-knit families and being close.
Yeah, and like the compound or the homestead. I love that.
Yeah, I do too. So they wanted to try and buy a house in the same neighborhood, and this house across the street had like plenty of bedrooms. It was perfect for them. Close by, obviously, and they put a bid on the house, and apparently it was not accepted.
But they didn't know. Samantha knew before Samantha knew before Rose and Connor knew.
Right. And she shares how she found this out, that it was like a friend of a friend of a friend heard that it was bought by an old friend of Rose's.
And I wonder who.
Yeah. Sebastian. That's where Rose's head goes. She's like, it's friggin' Sebastian. I haven't spoken to him in 3 years at this point. We have not seen him since Addicted for an Owl, when he helped Lily try and cheat on a stats exam and tried to break up Rose and Connor. Which, like, some part of me, it's not Sebastian, just a spoiler warning, but some part of me also, like, wanted to see Sebastian just so he could, like, have his face rubbed in of, like,
right,
no, whatever you tried, no, Rose and Connor are still absolutely going strong, and they have the cutest little daughter. And just, like,
look at us now.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's upset at this idea that it's Sebastian, and she is like, you know what? I'm going to go knock on the door of this house, and I'm going to yell at him about this. He can't take this house from me. I've wanted this house.
Right.
It's also 3:42. They just found out that the house, like, there are so many reasons why nobody should be there. Connor's like, he probably hasn't even moved in yet. The house is probably empty. She's I think she puts on flip-flops. It's winter time.
Lily's flip-flops.
Yes. Smaller than Rose, Lily's flip-flops. And she's trying to exit the house, and she needs to turn off the alarm, and it takes her like 5 tries to turn it off. And Connor's like, I don't believe in the universe, but don't you think this is the universe telling you that maybe you should cool off, wait for the morning? She's like, no. I got it now. This is the universe telling me that I can go. So she goes across the street, and she bangs on the door, and someone is actually home.
Right.
And the door opens up, and she goes, it's not Sebastian. it's someone much worse. Who could be worse? One of my least favorite characters ever, Scott Van Wright.
Scott Van Wright.
We thought
And it's like the vine when you see Scott Van Wright and feel the fire.
we hate him. Yes, he is a rat. So, yes, Scott, who we had hoped and prayed we would never see again because he was such a freaking slime ball.
Oh my God. So terrible.
Guy. He's back. We unfortunately have not seen the last of him.
And he's across the street.
Yeah. So close to them, which is just so Rose is super mad. This is even the worst case scenario. But Scott's here like, listen, I'm not here to fight you guys. I'm here to work with you guys. And Connor's like, there's nothing that we would want to work with you on. But Scott explains that it was, he mentions how he could sell another one of Rose and Connor's sex tapes for like another $1 million. And Connor's
because he has to keep up with his lifestyle.
Yeah. And Connor's like, that's it? That would not pay for this house that you're living in right now. How are you fronting the money for this house? And this is when Scott tells them that GBA is actually paying for the house. And they want to do a second season of Princesses of Philly, and they really want Jane and Moffy featured on the show.
Right.
That's like the big thing that they want is the kids. And Scott's even willing to sell back the rights to the sex tapes if they say yes to this agreement. And he won't tell Rose and Connor how many sex tapes he has. He's like, that's for me to know. Which is,
what a slime ball.
God, just for so many reasons that we haven't even touched on yet. And he says, I want your daughter on camera, and whatever other little brats you squeeze out, just fuck you, Scott.
I will kill him.
Yes. And when he says that, it infuriates Rose. Like, this is one of her biggest concerns just in general, and to have Scott kind of be that face of the evil media in the world just tips her over the edge. She doesn't want Scott anywhere near Jane. I don't want Scott anywhere near Jane. So she starts screaming and lunging at Scott, and Lo and Reich overhear Rose screaming. So they run out of the house and come over to see what's going on. And they see Scott, and they're also like really pissed off because nobody likes him. And Scott explains to Lo and Reich what's going on. And this is where Lo understands that in those previous chapters where GBA was breaking all of the contracts with Haleco, that was their way of trying to put pressure on Lo. And this is another added step. And it's just, why are you guys being so dirty and horrible about trying to exploit them and put them on TV when they don't want to be? Especially after how they were treated and edited. In no world would they ever agree. You guys get this through your head. So Scott is like trying to needle all of them. And Connor is only one person. He's trying to keep all of them in line. Like, Lo is angry. Reich is obviously going to try and fight Scott too, but Rose is just as ready to like chuck a shoe at him.
Right.
He does too.
This is the epitome of the triad.
Yes. And Connor is just one person trying to contain the entire hot temper triad. And at one point, Scott mentions Daisy and that he wants to sleep with her, and that one of his friends actually did, and says something crude about the type of sex that he had with Daisy. But we know from her perspective that, like, in those instances, like, we just know in general, all of the guys that she's ever had sex with have treated her so horribly. They are horrible men that just, like...
It was just... She was used by everyone.
Yes. So, obviously, this is going to piss Reich off. So he really tries to fight Scott. And then Connor eventually wrangles them away from the house. Scott closes the door. He's going back to bed. And Rose, this is the part where Rose just sounds so shaky to me as the narrator. And, like, I get that she was on the verge of crying, but she sounded less angry and more sad in my head.
Right.
So, where is it? Rose is like, he deserves to die. He
Yeah.
deserves to go to jail
To jail.
and rot. Lo says, then let's try and put him there. Connor says, as much as I despise Scott, murder isn't going on my resume. I meant jail, Lo says. I meant murder.
Yeah, Rose is like, no, all the way, please.
Yes, just permanently wiped from the face of this earth. That is what will make me happy. But she points out, like, imagine a world where our children have to face Scott and people just like him. And Lo is trying to tell her that it won't ever happen. And Connor's over here like, I can't promise you that. Like, our kid, there's absolutely zero way we can control the type of people that our kids will encounter in their lifetime.
Right. I mean, unless they went into witness protection, there's
Right.
no way their children would ever be out of the public eye.
Right.
No matter how hard they try.
Exactly. And Rose is like, so we must assimilate and blend in and pretend to be okay, which is, yeah, the way Connor has acted his entire life. And she's like, I hate your world. Ugh, it hurts.
It does.
And Reich's over here like, I can't have kids. I'm never going to be able to have
Right.
kids.
Oh my God.
It's okay, Reich. It'll work out. You're going to have some beautiful babies.
We know what happens. It's okay.
It's okay. So Connor tells them that they can't protect their children from every evil in the world, but what we can do is protect them from a certain group of people. And they're going to try and protect them as well as they can from the media. So he tells them that he's going to figure out a plan, which Connor, he's just constantly adding to his plate.
I know.
But he's going to figure it out. They need to stay away from Scott because Scott loves to incite them and they fall right into his trap. But he makes a promise. Scott isn't winning this time. And as we know, Connor always keeps his promises. So for him to say this is like, no, absolutely 100% guaranteed Scott isn't winning. We're going to take him down. So I just need to trust in that.
Trust the process.
Yeah. All right. So chapter 12, Connor is on his way to therapy with Frederick and he brings along Jane. The paparazzi are outside of the office building and they're like taking pictures, shouting questions to Connor, and he notes that none of them are asking anything about Jane. It's all about Rose and her hair and going down, like all of their headlines. They're just asking about the headlines, not about Jane. So it's like, okay, this is kind of working. And this is another one of those like rarities of seeing Connor as a dad. At this point, it'll become more commonplace, but at this point we have not seen Connor as a dad as much. So I love seeing it. But he's watching Jane just enjoy the world around her.
Right.
She's like pointing up for the elevator and like forward as we walk down this hallway.
Yes, this is what I love so much. We're going up, Jane, I tell her, pointing to the ceiling. She giggles and looks up, her headband sliding back. I adjust it and she pats her head. And then he's like playing peekaboo with her. Yes. And it's just, oh my God. It's just so perfect. One day, Jane, I whisper, you'll surpass me in all ways. I hope you do. I think about more children, a fog of a future. I hope you all do.
So beautiful. So they reach Frederick's office and he's looking super frazzled. Poor Frederick. That is the theme of this book. Poor Frederick.
I would like to see Frederick in person.
Me too.
In the Addicted show, I would love to see who could be cast as Frederick.
Yeah. He's very interesting. Just that he can connect with Connor so well. He's obviously a very smart man that he can keep up with Connor. So he's got like bags under his eyes. I think his paperwork is all just all over the place. Connor's like, he's packing up all of these texts and papers that are very clearly geared towards Daisy's condition, Connor can tell. And he's like, is her situation that complex? Like, what's going on, Frederick? You seem to be struggling right now.
Right.
And Frederick even almost like slips up about what he's discovered so far. Where is it? Yeah. Her case is that difficult for you? It's complicated. We're not discussing Daisy. He's just so used to being so open with Connor.
And he's also like, stop analyzing me, Connor. I'm not the patient. I'm your therapist.
Although we'll discover that Connor has attributes that like turn him into a pseudo therapist.
That Connor is all-seeing.
Yes. Jack of all trades. He could truly be a therapist.
Yep.
So Frederick brings up to, like, we're not talking about Daisy, we're going to talk about Connor. And he tells him that Jonathan has called him asking for a list of people that Connor has slept with and Frederick's professional opinion on what Connor is.
Jonathan wants a label on Connor.
He wants a label, and for Frederick to break frickin' HIPAA.
Yeah, really.
Tell me everyone he slept with. What the fuck? No,
Who
Jonathan.
do you think you are, Jonathan?
So Connor is like, how am I meant to deal with Jonathan? Am I supposed to, like, lay my heart on the line and beg him to please stop, trying to attack me? No, Jonathan is not that kind of person. He's not going to find a heart-to-heart meaningful. It's just something, he doesn't know how to quite deal with Jonathan at this point. He's this nuisance off in the corner, but as of right now, it's not anything that he needs to truly stress about. It's just, stop bothering me. Stop.
Right.
Leave me alone for a minute. Come on. And this is where he talks about how Jonathan's afraid that with Lowe's relationship with Connor, that Connor's going to have more sway over Hilco than he will. And he doesn't like, obviously, he's used to being CEO and having control of the company. And to go from that to some other guy that I don't totally trust. Like, Connor does come off as manipulative, so I can see where Jonathan might distrust him a little, but, like, believe in your kid. Your kid loves Connor, and that's his best friend, and just, like, let that be.
And Lowe has worked so hard to gain everyone's trust and to get where he is as CEO. He's not going to ruin that.
Right. Just Jonathan, please. And then Connor also notes that he's too connected to Lowe and to Rose and therefore the Calloways for Jonathan to ever truly do anything to turn on him. Like, because if he did, then it would obviously hurt everyone else that Jonathan cares about.
Yeah, and Jonathan's best friend, Greg Calloway.
Yeah, exactly. So he believes that whatever Jonathan has up his sleeve, it won't be that horrible because he would never want to hurt Greg and his family or Lowe. Those are the two people that mean the most to him. Just something to remember for later. So then Frederick notes how advanced Jane is for her age. And Connor's like, yeah, but I think Mafi is going to walk first. Like, the fact, he's like, Jane is advanced for her age, but I also love this acknowledgement that Mafi is too, and he's a month behind Jane at this point.
Right.
So he's pretty advanced. And I love that for Lily and Lo, that they were so worried about, like, what kind of kid they would raise. And this kid is just, he is a superhero. He is smashing all of these baby milestones.
Right. Absolutely.
So strong. Yeah. So he thinks Mafi's going to walk first. And he's truly so proud of him. And he's not even, it's not his baby. He's not even related to Mafi. Zero blood relation. Obviously, it's his nephew, but through marriage.
And it's so hard to, as a parent, it's so hard to not compare children, but especially with Jane and Mafi and everyone living in the same house. So even though they're a month apart, one can catch up faster and one can be delayed or, so no matter what, comparing them is inevitable.
Yeah. But I think it's just so sweet seeing the origins of Connor and Maximov's relationship too. And how I just like seeing how truly connected Connor is at this point. Yeah, he, like, of all of the characters, he is the one that truly does not have any connection. Like, he's only connected to these characters technically through marriage.
Right.
He's not a family member in any way, but he is so integrated into the family and loves Maximoff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's so sweet. And then Connor tells Frederick about Scott, that he's moved into the neighborhood. Frederick is stunned. He's like, I think he's speechless at when Connor tells him.
Yeah. Processing.
Yeah. And he asks Connor how he feels, and Connor's like, I feel nothing. I feel like I won. Yeah, you're a narcissist. It's hard for you to believe you've failed in any way, and so you make yourself believe you've succeeded. I did succeed. My company. How's Rose? And yeah. Rose definitely does not feel like they've succeeded.
Right.
And made more apparent by her reaction to Scott when he talks about the sex tapes. She kind of showed her hand that evening.
Right.
Or that morning when she yelled at Scott. And Connor like is really starting to process this idea that, oh, I felt like we won and you don't seem to be on the same page as me.
Right. You didn't win. Your wife is unfortunately unhinged right now.
Just a smidge.
And I mean, it's just Rose hates being out of control.
Right. Yeah, she needs to feel, and she explains more about what it is that really upsets her with these tapes in a later chapter. But yeah, it's definitely, she's type A. She needs to feel like she's in control, and this is a moment. This situation is not something she has any control over. So Connor like truly wants to beat Scott, eliminate him completely from like not just from the neighborhood. Like, you need to be completely disconnected from my family. I need to unattach you from the sex tapes too. It's like all parts of connection that you have to me, not just GBA and Princesses of Philly. Like, you're gone. I need you gone. But as I already said with Connor in that last chapter, Frederick points out that Connor has a lot on his plate right now. That he's a new father, head of a giant corporation, dealing with Jonathan, now dealing with Scott, and he's in bed with the media. It's just, there's a lot going on
Right.
for Connor right now. This is, I can't think of the metaphor, like too many spoons in the pot or something like that.
Right. Too many cooks in the kitchen. And then I think about, I forget what book it was, when Connor's like taking Adderall and
Yeah, that was
trying to
50
stay
Sky.
awake. And yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. He definitely struggled and was like detrimental to his health when he was just trying to balance dating Rose, being on the reality show, going to business school,
Mm-hmm.
and running a company. And that was more like, other than the reality show, that was more like all his speed and things that were just like he had to deal with them, but they were more like daily kind of things. This is being a lot more like forward thinking and planning and
it's his family and his livelihood.
yes, there's a lot more at stake too when it comes
Everything is at risk
to all of these things on his plate. So seeing Frederick just like point it out, you're like, I'm stressed. This is a lot. Like, I believe in Connor, but will he truly handle this? Can he handle all of this? I hope he can. And then Connor once again tries to disarm Frederick enough to reveal what's going on with Daisy.
Right.
And he does, he's like, we can talk about this. Colleagues talk about, like, discuss cases all the time. He's like, you're not my colleague,
You're not
Connor.
my colleague. I'm overqualified for your job. Connor is such a prick.
Prick that we love, but a prick no less.
God, he's so funny.
So Frederick just like finally relents, and he confesses that he can't tell what Daisy's symptoms are indicative of, whether she's bipolar or depressed. Like, and Connor tells him that you need to look past the facade that she puts on for the media and just pay attention to who she is when she's with you and not putting on a front.
Right. It's a facade. She's not bipolar. I realize that he's not far into her case yet. He's stuck at the beginning. I rise, lifting Jane into my arms. Don't watch her bounce around on television. Don't look at her smiling in magazines. Daisy would rather trick herself into believing she's okay than ruining the rest of our time worrying that she's not. I have that bookmarked.
Yeah.
How do you know this? I've mastered the art of hiding emotions. She's good, but she's not better than me. And she just hides it to a different extreme.
Yes. And for different reasons. Like, Daisy is trying to make other people's lives better by hiding her emotions, while Connor hides his emotions to make his life better.
Right. Daisy is trying to placate everyone else.
Yeah. And Connor's just trying to manipulate everyone else to get
Right.
what he wants.
Right.
It's so interesting to see I think Connor's relationship with Reich and Connor's relationship with Daisy are two that are just very fascinating to me because we don't see them. Again, one of those things where it's like more rare than him interacting with Lily or Lo. So I always find it really interesting to see him growing closer to Reich and Daisy and understanding their characters through his eyes.
I agree.
So we are going to end here with part 1 of the Fuel the Fire discussion, and we will pick up again with part 2 next week. But until then, continue to stay addicted to Krista and Becca's writing like us.